Welcome to the AI Assisted Organization podcast, hosted by myself, Piers and Aalok, and my co-host and co-founder of Implement AI, Dr. Aalok Shukla. I know you've been trying to do an April Fool's on me all morning. We're actually recording this on the 1st of April, so that means that it's the holidays. A lot of people are away skiing, I can see. I'm not. We're both working. Although I've had the kids.
It's a normal day. It's a normal day.
I know. Yesterday, I was telling you an emotional day. My daughter got into the national finals and then under 16 rugby, which was like everybody went absolutely nuts. So that was quite good fun. But apart from that, it's working really. A lot of my kids, my partner, are going. They're actually going skiing tomorrow. But I'm not. I'll be here.
Good.
Implementing AI. So the summary again, as always, our show is about AI for business. So we try and pull and extract out of the ongoing sort of tsunami of AI news, the bits that are interesting to organizations and businesses. So, and some of it is, we've got a smattering in today maybe about AI safety from 𝐻𝐻𝐻, who was the founder of one of the co-founders of Stability AI. And it's kind of interesting, and it kind of does affect how not just you, but also a lot of sometimes your employees or colleagues think about this technology. And our theme is again this year we went back to basics. Okay, we kind of moved on from that now. So we're launching a new kind of approach. I don't know if it's a framework, a model.
It's a program.
Probably a program called AI Foundations, really. And we're going to talk through that. But really, it's about kind of building into and sort of starting your journey to implement AI and become an AI-assisted organization, but more sort of step by step. A lot of our clients, some of them, they want to innovate, some don't want to innovate. They want to optimize. So we're trying to sort of come up with a program that helps you understand where you are and what you want to do and how you go about it. So we'll talk about that. So let's get into the news. So again, going back to we'll talk about 𝐻𝐻𝐻 Mustak a bit later on, or maybe even after this actually. So Stability have launched a new model. This is a small model, sort of 3 billion parameters, and this is for coding essentially. So this is called Stability Code Instruct 3B, and this is kind of competing with things like Code Llama 7B, 7 billion parameters. But what's quite interesting is that these models they're getting smaller in a way, but better. So we always talk about these large generalist models, the ones you're probably familiar with, but there are more and more models coming out now, especially open source ones that are more specialist, and they're very good at doing, well, they're supposed to be very good at doing one thing, but it turns out quite often that they're actually quite good at doing quite a few things. They become, they're quite good generalist model, and we'll talk about Databricks later on as well. So there's anything to add there really, Aalok?
No. I mean, like, as the efficiency is going up with all of the AI, there's more capability possible with less energy and also with less compute. So I think the efficiency gains are brilliant to see, and this is just an example of that.
And then another thing I always find interesting moving on is SaaS companies. So also I have it in for SaaS. I don't, but SaaS, it all became quite confusing with SaaS services where you'd buy something, say it was a CRM. Of course, they want to grow. That they've got an install base now, and they'd launch a ticketing system. So you might have Zendesk or a ticketing support system launches a CRM or sales automation. So Zendesk has Zen Sales, whatever it's called, and Salesforce has everything really. But what's happening now is that the SaaS companies clearly have to implement AI or at least embed it into their services. So you're seeing that this is about Airtable. So Airtable now have announced that they're launching sort of AI within Airtable. So Airtable essentially is a flat database, as I call it, really 2D. But what happens though is if you can now inject intelligence and you have information in different cells on this database, then they can start to talk to each other and start to use information in quite clever ways. So it becomes more of a productivity tool. So you're seeing that the SaaS companies now are expanding by offering other services, but as they inject AI, you find that it becomes even more confusing, or the water gets even more muddy in terms of what that product's actually designed to do for you.
I think like there's kind of like different things here. I think one, if they're a database, they have to add AI. Otherwise, you're just going to take the data out and just put it into your Microsoft Azure ecosystem or your Google or whatever like this. Like you have to have that. but then two, you have to then also think to yourself, like, what analytics are you trying to do? What is the utility? What is the output you're trying to get with? And I agree with you, Piers. Like there are some tools where it makes complete natural sense and you can actually do some analytics and things within it. And this, I think this would be a good example where it would actually be very helpful and very useful. But at the same time, when they start adding in different features, like, I don't know, like email automation or different things like this, when it was just a database or something, that's completely different. But I think there has to be essentially like one stage of AI assistance and AI usage is basically enhanced tools that you already use. But then it's just a question of like understanding the limit and scope of that, because that only talks to that reservoir of data. It doesn't have access to other areas of data. And what we always talk about is making sure that all your information is kind of joined up. So I think it's good in that like silo in that area, but at the same time, you also then need to like think about like a broader use case, like how can your organization or other areas within the business feed off that data as well, basically.
It was quite interesting. I don't know what your view is of things like Zapier or Make. These things that enable you to sort of connect different applications together. Is that it used to be sort of almost like logic gates. It was and or if. Or whatever the API has allowed you to do. Whereas now, you can between the two, you can have some intelligence. So, what do you think happens to those organizations, those businesses?
No, I think they're incredibly useful. I mean, let's just.
But do you think we're going to need them in the future? That's the point, really.
Yes, because there's always going to be disparate sources of information, different tools, different systems, all that kind of stuff. There will need to be connections. But the thing is, you have to understand like the difference between like simple, like let's call it like specific workflow automations. They're very good for and stuff like this. But if you're talking like trying to build like the kind of entire ecosystem and have everything kind of running in a structured way, it's not gonna be suffice for that basically. But for specific areas of like, I don't know, within marketing or within certain automations or follow up, typically tends to be sales and marketing that they're most useful for. Then those areas can definitely be helpful.
Okay, moving on. So this is kind of AI for business, but at a higher level, really, because it does impact what people read in the press and what your colleagues think about AI. So I was watching an interview by Emad Mustak. Is it Mustak? Is it? He's one of the co-founders of Stability AI. He was the CEO, and he was on the podcast with Peter Diamandis. He's quite an interesting guy. He was the guy who was the founder of the X Prize, so he's has quite a following. And the podcast was called "Why I'm Leaving My Company Immediately." Bracket Stability AI with Emad Mustak, and he basically, I mean, cut a long story short, it's about an hour and a half podcast, but he was sort of saying, and we've seen this quite a lot. You've got this sort of battle between the proprietary players and the open source players, and the proprietary players, they have enormous models, enormous amount of investment. And the clue there is the word investment is that to raise finance, to raise investment, they have investors that are going to want some kind of exit down the line, and ideally at a premium, at a profit. And that was going to be a sale or probably an IPO in most cases, these companies. And he was sort of saying, I think there's a backstory to this in terms of why he left, but we're probably never going to hear that. But the way he's sort of framing it in the public domain is that he had this battle between centralized AI and decentralized AI. It's a bit like people had these battles in crypto, and he decided to leave. It wasn't for him. I think also it sounds like he said that Elon Musk said that being a CEO, you find as Aalok, is like staring into the abyss and chewing glass, which, having been a CEO many times, that is absolutely true. So maybe the pressure of being a CEO weren't really for him. He was more of a researcher, an idea, an innovator, and it's fair enough for admitting that and moving on. So he's kind of moving on. So it'll be interesting to see what he comes up with, what he's going to do. But it's going to be decentralized, open source. But the point there is that people read about artificial intelligence, and there's kind of battle. And there are two different worlds. You're seeing a lot of the models we're talking about in the other model talking about in the pod today, they're open source. So this isn't going to be a purely proprietary model, a world of proprietary models. There are going to be lots of open source models. And we'll talk later about how even already the cost of training these things has dropped by a factor of, probably 10x.
No, he's a very interesting chap, and like the podcast was very interesting. But basically, to summarize, he said that like they only started the company 2 years ago. They'd raised a fair bit of money, but obviously like there are pressures now to like generate revenues when OpenAI and companies like that have been going for 8 years, and so it becomes quite challenging. And he said like he's good at going 0 to 1, and getting the thing off the ground, creating the team, all that kind of stuff. But he doesn't want to be the CEO basically, and like looking at how they get all those different areas. And then he was then talking about some interesting points where decentralized AI, he can't do it at stability. And this could be like, for example, like open sourcing like a health version of GPT, for example, where anybody could understand, let's say for autism or different things, what the new solutions could be, or for cancer. And he said he wants those to be not owned by any one company, but to be kind of like global and decentralized, so that the best and brightest minds in different countries can do it. I mean, good luck to him, basically, right? Like, I mean, I think having those kind of like things open sourced, where all the best data on cancer or different things like that can be accessible and available, that's great. But again, the question comes, who's going to fund these things, isn't it? Right? Like, I think that you then come back to the kind of central example. But very interesting guy.
But we've seen, like, I mean, these companies obviously don't need funding really. They are literally billions in the bank. But Google, they've open sourced a version of Gemini, it's like Gemma, and you see, Meta, for Facebook, they are kind of leading in open source. So the big proprietary players, in many ways, they are, to some extent, they understand this and they are releasing. Sometimes it's not the whole thing. It's kind of I mean, even Elon Musk and Grok, he's released Grok, but it's not the finished product. It's something that needs training. So I'm not convinced that you can't have both. It's just a question of how you balance the two. So we'll see how that plays out and which direction stability ends up going in. But from what Ahmad's saying, it's pretty clear. And at the end of the day, all this competition is good for all of us, because competition, I mean, there's money flowing into it. You can have your view on AI, but the development of technology is inevitable. So there's more money flowing into it because people can see a return, and therefore you're seeing it evolve and develop very, very quickly. Moving on, speaking of which, Adobe. Now, Adobe is one of those companies that we all probably use in some way or the other. You probably use PDFs, okay? It's huge, especially in the creative space. You don't really hear a lot, or haven't heard a lot about it, but Adobe's been, pretty quick out of the gates in terms of AI. So they launched, this was last year, Firefly. If you haven't used Firefly, I mean, I've for years used, I've tried to use Photoshop, can never bothered learning all the ins and outs of it. But I did spend a lot of time learning how to use Premiere Pro, which is this video editing software. And it's just insane what you can do with it with the Firefly versions if it's still in beta. In terms of just masking things, taking things out of your video you didn't want that are there, it's extremely powerful. And they had their big kind of developer conference, so that all these big companies do. And the CEO was saying that they've had 6.5 billion content generations currently, and now they're embedding AI even more into the platform. So you've got the kind of the creative cloud, they call it, which is a whole suite of platforms and different sort of software. So now you're going to be able to sort of talk to and interact with PDF documents. Whatever you upload into the sort of creative cloud, you're going to be able to converse with it and analyze it and extract information from it, as you've been able to do in these kind of chat to your PDF. But they're doing it now. So again, bit like these SaaS companies that start chat to your PDF. The big players see the opportunity and just disrupt them.
Again, but then like I say, like definitely that becomes useful. And really the question is, like, how can there be any place where there is a text box and it not have intelligence inside it, basically, right? Like it kind of has to.
That is true. So keep your eye on Adobe. If you haven't used Adobe's Firefly, for example, or the beta versions of their kind of Photoshop or Premiere Pro, go and have a play with them, because
They've also got a bit
powerful.
They've also got a bit of an existential crisis, because like previously they had like tools which were empowering creators and designers and things like this, and now they're creating tools which almost like bypass the abilities in different areas and enhance and augment them. So definitely creators, but then the creators who are very creative and use these tools, they can be even more creative. So I think it's a question of like upskilling and reimagining how the depth to which you can kind of create things.
What amazes me is, my partner, she likes making videos to TikTok and things like that. But the power of these, like even these editing tools, just on your phone, it's insane. The stuff I used to spend hours doing, trying to mask things and get it to work. You just do it on the fly now. And I think you're right that we'll keep coming back to this. That, and I probably did a post about this on LinkedIn as well. Is that if you're anyone now can be a creative.
Yes.
I think that's really powerful. I think the argument about creatives being disrupted by this technology, I get it, and you should make sure that people's works are, they're not copied and they get paid for their efforts. But the other side of the coin, I think, is far bigger, which means that someone like me, I think in pictures, right? I wave my hands around all the time, but I can't draw to save my life. But now I can literally have something in my head.
Yeah.
I spend 15 minutes maybe to get it just right in Mid-Journey, and I can conjure anything into existence.
So
And I
this
think that's really powerful.
extremely. So it's like photography, right? Before, when it was like film photography, only a certain number of photographs were taking place per year. Now with digital photography, everyone takes photographs, and especially on the mobile phone as well, right? And I was listening to a very interesting podcast where they were actually talking about like how AI tools can actually reimagine the whole brainstorming process. Like, so I don't know if you imagine, like, for example, they were using film production. So I'm coming back to like the creative bit. They're using film production as an example, and they imagine it was like a Magic Kingdom Studios. They called it that. So we can all imagine who that is. And they were saying these people were in a workshop how they could use AI to create whole new possibilities. So then what they did was they created a Space Wars LLM. So we know what that is, and that's basically trained in the whole Space Wars, Star Wars, essentially like a ecosystem. And what they did was within 15 minutes they'd create a whole new virtual world, and they could actually all see it together. And then they were able to like create like also like exciting clips of video and stuff. So rather than putting lots of post-it notes on a wall in a brainstorming session, in that 2.5 hour brainstorming session, they actually created like 6 different videos, an entire world, different landing pages, and everyone can get much further along in that experience. So I think the power and the velocity and the ability for everybody to get on board who aren't traditionally creative, and you don't need to do like a storyboard and all that kind of stuff. You can create virtual worlds very quickly. And if you've got like AIs trained on, let's say, Indiana Jones, that whole ecosystem, or like a Lord of the Rings or whatever, you can imagine an immersive world just based off that, isn't it? Right? So there's so much you can do with this now.
Okay, moving on. So finally, Apple are going to be, seems to be at least, launching their AI strategy, or at least some of it, at their worldwide development conference, worldwide developer conference in June. So these big companies have all these, these annual events. And I think we don't quite know what they're going to do, because obviously it was quite very secretive. But I think that they have to start talking about this quite quickly, or I think they're going to find the stock price takes a hit. And what we're expecting to see is sort of AI built into, or starting at least to be built into, things like Siri, and also into the sort of iOS itself. And I think, and this is, we talked about this for like since we started this podcast, haven't we? Which is this would be huge. I mean, if you think about the install base, Siri, the potential of this. I think they're gonna have to work out how it's not just gonna, kill their servers, because a lot of people will just be chatting to Siri all day long. But this has always been a disappointment. You see, people will come on to our the next piece about a post I did about call centers and voice, where everyone's saying, "Oh well, I can't see it taking off because Alexa's still rubbish." Well, watch this space, right? Because I don't think by the end of this year, Alexa will be the Alexa we all hate, and Siri will be this kind of limited
it's going to be a step
interface
change
that we don't really use it now and then, maybe to ask what the time is, or change your alarm clock. So Apple hopefully will start to announce something interesting in June, and we'll take it from there. But the things like all the usual stuff like content generation, summarizing data for an app, maybe photo editing. So you can imagine that Apple can now, going back to the Adobe, that all these companies start to compete, because Apple now can actually just build into iOS the ability to edit photos.
Yeah, there's so much that they can do if they can get it running on their iPhone, and then when they will. I mean, it's a question of if, when, not if, basically.
So we won't dwell on that too much. We'll wait to see what happens. We're not too far away. So let's moving on. So big one's voice. So there's a real battle over voice, and I did a post last week about saying that call centers are going away, because they are, right. Humans answering phones, it's just going away. Why do you need premises, phones, headsets, systems, contact center systems, training, back office? It doesn't make any sense, because within 2 years, I was saying that these systems will be indistinguishable from humans. And now, people have been ringing up our call agent, and it's pretty good. You can hear in the background, there's a bit of noise in the background from as if it sounds like a call center. You can hear the agent respond, and then you can hear kind of typing. It makes it sound realistic. Now, I don't think that long-term people really care about that being realistic. What they want is an answer to the problem or solution. They want they've called for a reason and they want a solution or an answer. That's all they care about. The fact you can't hear, human sounding keys being tapped in the background, I don't think it really matters. So voice is enormous. Now, clearly, OpenAI, because they can't help themselves, they're now launching, or it's a preview actually, something called Voice Engine.
I mean, can you imagine
And
GPT-5?
yeah, and apparently you're going to have, when they launch Sora, which is a text to video, which is amazing, when they launch that later this year, that's going to have a voice and an audio capability in it as well. Maybe audio, but there'll probably be voice too. And now Voice Engine it's competing with people at 11 Labs, so we work quite closely and use 11 Labs quite a lot. But it's amazing. So if you imagine you're reading a bedtime story to your children, okay, it's definitely not monotone, isn't it? Trying to make it as interesting as possible. You've got emotion, the intonation you use, and basically, Voice Engine enables that. So you can have different types of sort of standard text, or if you want, or even a recording, and then you put it through Voice Engine, and it turns into something that sounds, I mean, as human as anything's ever going to sound. In fact, you're probably better off actually putting your bedtime story reading sessions through this and doing it yourself.
I mean, it's quite incredible. I mean, like, everything is converging, as we said from the beginning, and so I'm really excited to see how more of that kind of comes out, because voice everywhere. Also, even right now, if you think about the capabilities, the analytics, the speed, and the cost, and you imagine, for example, a group of call centers where there's 6 different locations, 6 different sets of computers, phones, rental places, all that kind of stuff, versus an AI call center. I mean, the cost differential will be enormous. I used to use a service called
There is no call center. It's just literally
but that's what I'm saying.
it's on Azure or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I remember a long time ago, I used to use a service called rev.com, which was for transcription. So I would upload audio recording and then get the text
I used
transcribed.
to use that for my YouTube video.
Yeah, for blog posts and stuff like that. So I used to do that like 10 years ago. And then over time it introduced AI translation and transcription and stuff like this. So then the human bit went away, basically. And this is the same basically, right? Maybe right now of the phone calls being done, the human is more, but the number of AI is going to grow rapidly. And also the fact that it can send reports straight afterwards, fill out the systems, complete in detail on the CRM, follow up as needed, continue a conversation.
Well, the pushback you always get, though, isn't it, is, oh, it doesn't sound human. It sounds a bit robotic. And,
Okay, so I'd actually say
okay.
yes. I'll say something controversial. A lot of human sounding calls are frustrating.
Yeah, a lot of humans sound awful and robotic. Then that's true, actually.
A lot of calls that I've done, I don't get the solution I want, and then they just keep asking
But
me.
also, you hear, because we listen to a lot of calls, don't we? And you hear the human the other side, mumbling, and you think, oh my god, the AI is a lot clearer than the human.
So the question isn't human. The question is do you solve the issue?
Absolutely right. But I think, and this is the thing that everyone, if you listen to this podcast or watch it, right, you've got to get your head around the fact that, and we always say this, AI is the worst today it is ever going to be.
The rate of improvement
Don't mean tomorrow, right? You look at this podcast. I mean, the amount of stuff we have to miss out, because it'll be 3 hours long every week. But the amount of stuff we miss out, the volume of change and evolution is it's mind-boggling. So voice is a big one, okay? And you are, guarantee me, within 24 months, you'll be indistinguishable from a human. It'll be better than a human. You'll be able to pick up more information. I mean, we see even now where you've got the voice capability and the model, which it sort of sits upon, and people try and take it off piece because they're trying to be cute, trying to be clever, and it just sort of apologizes and gets it back on track, seamlessly. It's amazing. So call centers, first line support, humans answering phones. There will be humans in the loop because things are going to be escalating. There'll be edge cases, but 90% of the need to have people answering phones is going away.
And then you can also get an email directly with exactly what your conversation was about and all that kind of stuff. It increases the transparency. That's much better.
Right, and we were showing a demo as well, which is a retrieval augmented generation, which is basically chat to your document sort of thing. And we're saying that you can have a conversation about something, and immediately, or within the conversation, or at the same time, you'll get a message and a link to the exact point in a video or document
That's the
where
demo.
it gives you the answer. I
Exactly.
mean, it can do things that humans can't do. We always forget that as well. So that's quite exciting. Voice, let's keep we're watching that. Was something we are very interested in. Moving on, so OpenAI, probably, I don't know if people kind of tried GPTs. So if you've got Chat GPT Plus, you can actually use or create GPTs. So you may have used Chat GPT Plus, which means you can actually access these GPTs or create your own actually if you want to. And they're kind of like, they're supposed to be apps, like an app store in a way. Hasn't really taken off because they're quite easy to copy. Sometimes you can even access the actual underlying prompt, but they've tried to lock that down. And what OpenAI have launched now is a GPT monetization. So the idea is to try and move towards a kind of an app store model. Now, I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work, but they've been contacting some of the people that have launched pretty GPT has been used quite a lot, they're quite popular, and said to them, you're going to be rewarded for the use of your GPT. Now, usually in the app store, you pay them, and Apple gets a big chunk of it, like 30%, although that may change. So I'm not entirely sure how it works for OpenAI, but they just want to kind of prove this model that you can create your own piece of IP on the platform, people use it, and you make money out of it. So it's not particularly clear, but it's something that's worth looking at. If you haven't used GPTs, haven't tried to create one, it's worth doing. And again, I always say, if you haven't signed up to ChatGPT Plus or Gemini Pro or Claude Pro yet,
What are you
then
doing?
you need to. Yeah. Moving on, Databricks. This is an interesting one. So Databricks, quite a well-known AI company, and they've launched an open source foundational model called DXBR. So this cost, I think, about $10 million or something to train, to stand up, not the usual hundreds of millions. Okay, and this is meant to be a specialist model it's for data analysis and also code. So we don't use models to a lot of code. Actually, we do sometimes, or we use it in sort of GitHub, but this is one really about data analysis, I would say. And the point here is that this model was cheaper to stand up because it's supposed to be a specialist model. But what's happening is when you actually try it is that it's kind of on a par with generalist models like OpenAI, ChatGPT 3.5. So it's pretty capable. It's a mixture of experts model. So it has think of it as within the model or different path model or different experts they're better at doing different things. So as you prompt the model, it decides which expert should actually respond. So they're pretty powerful. But it's the 2 points here. One is you're seeing more specialist models, which you may want to use in your business because you've got a specific task you want it to do. And then secondly, the specialist models can also be used, in most cases, at a pretty powerful generalist model.
No, indeed, and I think like the more companies that come into the fold, the cheaper, the faster, the more compute efficient these ones are. It's just going to make more and more developments and much more accessible. Basically, like I think it's always good.
So keep right on that. If you're thinking about data analysis is the key to your business. That's where, as Aalok always says, you want to have this sort of night vision, spectral vision, so you can see insights other people can't, so you can react to it, which, let's face it, creates competitive advantage. There are models like this that you might want to look at, might want to use. So implement AI. So if you don't know much about us, if you do listen to the podcast, you'll know that we've got a training academy. So the first thing in artificial intelligence really is training. It's being able to understand and use this technology. Otherwise, you end up getting garbage in, garbage out. So you need to be able to use these tools. We've got our newsletter, which we'll get out one this week after the bank holiday. And then we have a range of sort of programs with it. So we start with things like training, AI boardroom briefing, so leveling up your senior leadership team, which can be quite important to get the ball moving in terms of implementing AI. And we're launching this week, I think, AI Foundation. So we have our programs, and what we found is that talking to a lot of clients is that they kind of understand they need to do something, but they don't quite know what. So we've kind of divided really into this kind of optimize. So let's do what we're already doing better. Let's optimize it. Maybe reduce cost. Maybe we can grow without adding cost in a linear way.
Automate more.
Disconnect the two. Yeah, how do we do more with less? And then you've got the innovation part of it. So the innovation part of it is more, okay, let's look at the business, the workflows, the opportunity, and how can we use this technology to add real value, an unfair advantage.
Exactly.
The two are quite different because
Yes.
the optimize element, doesn't it, is really about, which we'll go into more detail in a minute. The optimize really is about, there are tools out there we can use as use cases. We can show you. Innovation is different, okay? That's kind of blue sky. But we're going to talk about that after this. So we're going to launch that this week. And so watch out for that.
No, exactly. And then we've got like a kind of like, so AI transformation is like a pyramid that we've kind of like, and we designed this, and we will share this basically. And like, if we think about the pyramid of AI transformation, just like you said, split into two halves, we've got optimize, which is the foundations level, and then we've got innovate, which is like the apex top part of the pyramid basically. And if we think about like, let's the base level, like if a company's trying to transform by implementing AI, what do they need to do? Well, AI foundations is the focus is, first of all, the team needs to understand how AI works, what it can do, and have that mindset about what is possible to do with AI, basically. So they start to understand, not fear it. They can see that the company's got a clear vision about how it's going to embrace it, how it's going to grow, how it's going to like not necessarily reduce lots of team members and things like this. So then that's like the kind of like base level area.
But how it's going to augment them, which means that you can
Exactly.
do, you can avoid, we'll see, you can automate the mundane and avoid doing the stuff that you don't like doing.
Exactly. So, and also like how AI would then fit into it, and like what's the different ways of it being fitting into your company. Like it can be tools, a bit like I talk about, like rather than doing the knowledge as a taxi driver, having ways like a smart AI tool which helps you in your meetings, gives you the answers you need. Or for example, it's a smart AI tool which analyzes all the emails coming in, or different things like this. So tools that you can use to augment your work to do better, but then also to understand how there could be, AI automations which could actually manage things automatically. So some aspects of your role you wouldn't necessarily have to do. So AI foundations is understanding that part of it. Then the level above that is AI competency. So AI competency is actually where the team is actually capable and able to do those tasks in a straightforward way, using all the different elements of AI for data manipulation, for research, for writing, for creating whatever kind of presentations, formats, documents, whatever it is like this, but doing that with AI so that the productivity increases, like we always talk about, that you can do things faster, but also the quality increases because you can do it better. And that would also be using AI tools that might be internally built for you, which might be like your own knowledge management system, or it might be other tools which can help and augment what you're already doing, so you can actually get things done faster and
But
better.
it's also just understanding, okay, for each need, what's the best in class tool I can use today? This
Yep,
changes over time, and then we give you the basics of, okay, how do I use an avatar? How do I
exactly.
get it to translate in real time? How do I have an avatar that lets me walk and talk, which we'll come on to later as well. So competency is really important. That is your first step in any AI implementation.
That's adding the capacity and adding new capabilities into your company. Like we've always said in the past, normally to add more capacity and capability, you have to hire new people. This way, you're actually just almost like giving everyone like the AI capabilities and helping them gain those ones. So then they that expand the capacity and capability of the team in that regard. And
So,
then the
so you got foundation, and you got competency. Keep going.
next, yeah, so there's the base level, like, and then there's the competency, then usage. So then the key thing there is that like the team is starting to use and implement, AI workflows. So this is where there might be some specialist AI, workflows built into your company and installed, and we do help with those different elements within there. Where then you've got your own central database, you've got different things which might be checking emails that are coming in, might be checking, information from phone calls, might be checking in from documents and analyzing different areas. But you've got more automation happening, which is then supporting the team with already doing more things. So you basically start to like look at each role, take off some of those areas of tasks, automate some of those different areas, expand the capacity of those different people within there, and you've got like the base of the foundation. So that's basically optimized, essentially, Piers,
But
isn't it?
you could stop there. So if you don't want to sort of be a blue sky, innovate, spend the money, the time, the energy, you can actually stop there. And what that means is your business, I mean, in some cases you can become 20% more, so the capacity could go by 20%, and your
Or
productivity,
more.
or even more. But you can stop there and then embed AI into your business, and then think about innovation later, or you can keep going.
Exactly. So from that optimized function, they say that like the new flex is actually having a smaller team, basically, right? Rather than having these massive teams, like, so the new flex is like, how can you use AI technology to have a smaller team? So for example, within this, you can actually then optimize, make sure you've got like, your team at the right size, but then you can actually grow revenue, 30%, 40%, 50%, and be much more profitable. But then the second part of the pyramid is where we call like the innovation elements of it. And that's where you would look at, like, for example, like level 3 is like integration. So you might be using AI assistants and agents on the customer facing side of it to have a more more interactive, more engaging, full analytics visualization systems within companies. So it's easier, let's say AI estimators or AI tools for customers, or AI agents that they talk to be able to like solve issues, a bit like we talked with the voice agents. So that's like where you're easier to deal with, you're less friction, there's less friction in the communication with you, and so it's just easier to use you. You think about Amazon, that one-click checkout, it's just easier to use Amazon because they know everything about you, basically. So in the same way, if your system is easier to know, and you've got like the customer portals which already know everything about them, and you've got the voice agents you can talk to everything, so they know everything, that just becomes much
But
better.
this means you do have to start looking at your business, your workflows, your processes, your people, the opportunity, your customers. Then it's a bit more of a business analysis process, isn't it, before you start
And opportunity
innovating.
and opportunity analysis, exactly. Like, well, if you could do X and your company and your competitors can't do that, what would give that advantage? And then above that, then you've got like, optimization. So it might be the development of specific internal facing tools or external facing tools, or even whole departments which are AI driven. So it could be an entire AI driven call center within your business, or it could be an entire, AI expert layer which supports the experts within your companies, which then offers a low cost solution, or enables much more people to like engage with your company. These are like almost like your special tools, your special almost like weapons, essentially, that you can kind of develop within there. And then beyond that, it's like creating even an AI transformation, the apex part of it, it's like entirely new sort of services, product lines, and customer facing solutions, essentially, which then becomes even easier to deal with, and maybe even offers like whole new value that other people could not do that, basically. So that's like the level
So
of.
essentially, the idea is that you can step into this at based on your budget and the pace at which your organization, or
Yeah,
even you, if you're the business owner and you're a bit sort of unsure about this, is the pace at which works for you, and the budget as well. And it's up to you then to work out, okay, do I want to just optimize my business, and then do I start to innovate? But the point is that eventually, it's going to take years, right? But every business will be kind of optimized or more optimized. And the only way you can differentiate once everyone's got AI, because like spell check, is then you do have to start innovating.
your specialist tools, exactly, and your specialist elements, and they can be internal facing as well. So like having your own AI driven processes which are faster, more accurate, lower cost than other people. So that's the kind of like, that's the vision, basically, for most companies, to understand that like you need to go along that path, and along that path you're going to have more revenue per employee, you're going to have like less stress, you're going to have like more automated, more scalable. So if business goes up or goes down, you can scale according to that. It just makes it a more
And there's two elements, isn't there? One is augmenting your people, your team, your colleagues, your workforce, and then there's processes and systems as well. So they're kind of two-sided different things, although they do clearly overlap. But again, we always say that in the competition for talent in the future, you're going to have to automate the admin and the mundane.
Yeah,
Otherwise, why is someone going to come and work for you if someone else will do that for them? So you've got people, which is really the first step in many ways, and then the processes and systems.
exactly. And then it's like having more automated systems also makes you more resilient if people do leave, and you have different challenges and different things like that as well.
So that's AI foundations, right? So we've been doing a lot of thinking on this, and we've had a lot of feedback from our clients about how they approach it. And also depends on the size of clients as well, and how much money. Some of our clients are like, I get it. I want to create an AI assisted organization. I want it to be autonomous almost within 3 years. Let's go. And they're kind of starting at the top. But even then, if you're absolutely focused on innovation, you still have to put the foundations in place,
Of
because
course.
otherwise, like I would say, it's like pantomime horse. If the front end breaks away, it's very hard to put it back together again. So you need to do all of this, but a pace which works for your organization. That's what AI Foundations is about. So look out for that. Right, so AI of the week. I have to say, I've been playing with quite a lot, and it's 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬. So 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬, if you haven't used it, this is you've got things like 𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 as well, which some of you I know have used. But 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 have now launched. They can create avatars. They can create avatars with about 30 seconds of video, which are pretty good. They can create an avatar from a still image, which can be a little bit weird, especially if you can't see your teeth, because you get sort of weird looking teeth. But well, they're not your teeth; they're someone else's teeth or an AI teeth. But incredibly capable in terms of what it can do. But I think what's interesting, what I've been playing with, is that you can now walk and talk. So if you imagine that, I made a video for a previous business walking down a street, and you're talking into the camera, You remember the script, and you walk in the camera, and imagine they're kind of rolling backwards, and you're walking towards them, and you're talking about your business. Because it's just better and more. I don't know. It's better and feels like you can engage more than just standing against a coloured wall. But what they can now do is that becomes your avatar. So you can then write a script, and it will then speak as it's walking and talking, whatever you put into the script. You can then translate it. So you can now walk and talk, and you're moving. You can even wave your hands around down the street, wherever you want to be, around your office, and speaking the language as well. And it changes the shape of your lips to match. And that's incredibly powerful now, because now you haven't got avatars just, standing there against a coloured sort of block background. Now you're walking and talking wherever you want to do it.
No, it's incredibly powerful. I agree with you. Like, it's amazing.
If you haven't used @HeyGen ever, I suggest go and have a go and have a play with it, and just see the power of it. And again, 6 months ago, it didn't do any of this. It was making pretty average avatars, and you're seeing companies like 𝐛𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐧𝐞𝐬𝐬 as well, but they both raised quite a lot of money, including recently. So you're going to see this improve again. So that's definitely AI of the week for me. So we're going to leave it there. Well, we're up to about 40 odd minutes. So don't forget, sign up for the AI Insider newsletter, read our white papers, look out for our AI Foundations launch, which is going to be during the course of this week. If you like this podcast, please rate it, especially on Apple as well. And we're trying to get this out at least once a week. We're going to use this as well as a basis, probably this week, AI Foundations for our AI Insider newsletter. We'll put some more information in there. That's it for this week. This is the AI Organization podcast. Myself, Piers, Aalok, and Aalok Shukla. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.